Have you ever looked at your life and felt like you are just stuck repeating the same things over and over? Like, no matter what you do, you are always back where you started. Like, you move 2 steps forward and you end up taking 3 steps back. And you tell yourself, no, this time it's gonna be different. I'm motivated. Maybe you even make some progress compared to the last time you tried, but then somehow you end up right back in the same place, stuck again in that same negative cycle without knowing how to move forward. And I get it. Life feels like it's just got us on replay and it's frustrating as hell. And here's the crazy thing. Most of us, we just assume that that's how things have to be like. Like these patterns and these stories that we live by, they are fixed, they're locked in, and we can't do anything about them to change them. But what if you've been missing the real reason why you keep ending up back here? What if there's something deeper at play that is keeping you stuck in that cycle? And what if I told you that there's a way out of this loop that isn't some quick fix, that isn't some cheesy pep talk, that is something that it goes beyond the just stay positive, work harder, live, laugh, laugh type of stuff. And I'm talking about really understanding what is keeping us locked in these cycles so you can actually do something about it. And in this video, I'm going to share with you why we keep falling into the same traps, why it's so hard to break out of them, and most importantly, how you can change it. So if you are tired of feeling like you're running in circles, like a little hamster on the wheel, then this video is for you. This could be the moment that you finally see what's been holding you back and you find a way to move forward. For real this time. The first thing that you need to understand is that these patterns aren't just random. They're not given to you randomly because fate chosen that you have them. They are deeply rooted in our mindset and the stories that we tell ourselves. So you might think that, oh, it's just bad luck or this is who you are, but have you ever wondered if it's maybe just a story that you're telling yourself? Hi guys, I'm Adriana and welcome back to my channel. Now let's get started into the first hidden pattern. So the first hidden pattern that keeps you from breaking the negative cycle that you're in is external influence. So basically, you listen too much to others' opinions. And I'm sure you heard this before, but do you even realize how much weight you've been personally giving to other people's opinions? Don't think about other people, think about you. We live in a world where everyone feels entitled to share their opinion, share their perspective about something like we ask, and they often don't understand your own journey. And it's all too easy to let those outside noises and voices to drown out your own inner voice. You know what I mean, right? Like you're feeling inspired, you share your new goal, your new dream, a bold idea that you have with your parents or your friends, and instead of support, you get doubt, you get criticism, or worse, you get indifference, like, oh yeah, right, like you're gonna do that. And that stuff sticks to you like glue, and it first is in your mind and it's making you question everything that you thought that you wanted. Think about it, like how much of what you do or you don't do is because someone else's voice is living rent-free in your mind. Whether that's a friend, whether that's a parent, whether that's just society, these voices, they are not just harmless opinions. They are limitations that they get embedded, they get repeated, and then they start to sound like they are your own. Most people, when they share their opinions, they're not actively and intentionally trying to hold you back. They are just reflecting their own fears, their own belief systems, that they're just rooted in their own experiences, in their own pain that they haven't healed from. A lot of times our parents don't do that because they want to spite us, but because they want to protect us and they want to keep us safe. But without even realizing it, you take that in as if it's truth, but it's not. It's simply their truth that is built from their own fears and it's built from their own limitations. But you don't have to make it yours. Imagine you are walking down a path and every step that you take, you're always looking sideways and you're checking if people are nodding and they're approving of you. I mean, you're gonna lose focus, you're gonna trip, and you might even give up altogether. Now, think about people who live authentically, people that stay laser focused, straight ahead, looking at their goal. They have found their own rhythm, they have found their own direction, and when someone tries to throw them off, they don't even flinch. And why do they do that? It's because they are grounded. They are so grounded in their own truth, not someone else's, right? So here's something very crucial. When you leave waiting for others to give you the green light, you are giving up a piece of your freedom. So you're letting someone else's opinion, someone else's fears to dictate how much of your life you actually get to live. So it's like standing on the edge of your potential and you're ready to fly, you're ready to open your wings or whatever, and only you're held back because someone else was too afraid to jump when it was their turn. And when you let other people's voices control you, it doesn't just keep you stuck, it creates internal resistance, because deep down you know that you're not following your path and you know that you're not doing what you're supposed to do, and that creates an internal tug of war. One part of you wants to move forward, but the other one is trying to keep everyone around you happy, keep them proud, keep them comfortable, whatever. And this resistance drains your energy and it keeps you small, and it holds you back from actually spending that energy on achieving your true potential. Imagine that inner conflict, that constant tug of war. It's not even yours, right? What if the real reason that is there is something that you can actually change? So just understand, if you want to live a life that is yours, you have to learn how to unlearn what has been drilled into you, what has been given into you. You have to be willing to shed the layers that were never yours to begin with. If you want real freedom, you must start peeling back these layers one voice at a time. So you have to picture it this way. Each opinion you let go of, it gets you one step closer to hearing your own instinct, hearing your own voice. And each time you drop someone else's fear, you are closer to a life that is actually yours. Because these so-called limits, they are just ceilings that other people placed on themselves, and you don't have to accept them. The only way to break free from these limits is to take them off one by one, until you are left with just a blank state. Imagine this. Imagine living each day like you're finally calling the shot. No backup voices telling you to be safe, to be realistic. And that's real freedom, right? That's where maturity begins. The moment you start living by your own rules, and not the ones that were handed down to you, that's when real maturity settles inside of you. What if that inner conflict, that part of you that feels held back, isn't even yours? Imagine the energy that you can unlock and you can gain back if you could just let it go. So I want to challenge you. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are you letting the opinions of others to dictate your dream? And if you are, it's time to shift that narrative, okay? You can start small. So when you catch yourself seeking validation, or when you're feeling uncertain after sharing your aspirations, after you're sharing your goals, pause and ask yourself, is this feedback that I'm receiving coming from a place of love, or is it coming from a place of fear? Is it aligned with who I am and what I want? And when you start filtering out the noise and trusting your own instincts, then the path to your true self, it will become clearer. Also ask yourself, is there maybe a calling that I keep pushing down? Maybe it's a direction that you want to go, but I'm keep putting it off because I'm waiting for everyone else to get it. No one else has to get it. The moment you give permission to yourself is the moment that you free yourself from these chains of needing to getting permission. And once you move from that place, you'll find your path. Not because it's obvious and it's easy, but because it's yours and now you're able to see it. And that's the only permission that you ever really needed. Real growth and real maturity happens when you start to cut out the voices in your head that aren't yours. Think about it. How often do you second guess yourself because somewhere in the back of your mind you are hearing your parents' expectations, you're hearing society rules, or what a teacher said to you years ago, or whatever. These voices didn't just appear out of nowhere. They are echoes from your past, and they have settled in so deep that you feel like they are your own thoughts. They are stemming in from inside of you and from yourself, but they're not. So here's the challenge. Are you ready to start letting go of everything that you didn't choose? I know it's a risk, sure, but staying stuck in that is an even bigger risk. If you're not living on your terms, are you really living? Okay, this isn't about rebellion or proving a point. It's about making your life yours with no compromises. Every time you silence those old voices, you step into a life that feels genuinely right for you. And that's where the real power is, not in following the map, but in drawing the map. So let this be the beginning. Start today, okay? When you catch yourself holding back, stop and ask, whose voice is this really? If it's not yours, let it go. Because the only life worth living is the one that is truly yours. And the only person you need permission from, that's you. Now, the second hidden pattern is that you give up your free will to a program. So the biggest culprit at play here is victim mentality. And you know, I get it. It's comfortable to sit in that space, blaming your past, blaming your upbringing, blaming your circumstances or whatever for where you are right now. There's a certain ease in pointing fingers in a familiar story that feels safe to tell. But here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of us, we stay stuck in that mindset because on some level, it feels safer than taking control. When you start identifying too much with your pain, you start to believe that it defines who you are. Think about it. Being the one who got dealt a bad hand gives us a framework. It gives us an identity that others recognize and even sympathize with. But the trap is that the moment you let your pain become your identity, you hand over your free will. You are letting that story dictate your choices. And that's when you move from experiencing pain that came from outside of you to choosing suffering that you choose to bring inside of you. Suffering becomes an active choice the moment we decide to keep replaying the painful moments in our minds instead of moving forward, instead of healing them and turning those weaknesses into our strength. And I had to face some harsh truths about my own journey. And yeah, of course, we all carry trauma, but we also all have free will. Every day, you get to choose how you react to your past. Some days are harder than others, but every day you have the chance. You can view it as a stepping stone or you can view them as a stumbling block. And I remember when I finally owned up my choices, it was really eye-opening. And I realized that I wasn't a prisoner of my own circumstances, but rather I had the power to be the architect of my life, and that gave me so much power. So it's not about denying what happened or glossing over the pain. This is not what I'm talking about. It's about recognizing that your past doesn't have to dictate your future. It's about alchemizing the bad hand that was given to you to something good. Now, let's dig even deeper. There's a hidden layer to this cycle of victimhood that is rarely talked about. So holding on to that story, the one where life was unfair, can actually feel empowering in a weird way. It gives us a sense of control, ironically, because it gives us an excuse. It's a defense mechanism that it says, you know, I will be so much happier, more successful, more confident if only this didn't happen to me. And this mindset is keeping us from having to face the unknown and the discomfort of change. But let's be real. Change is uncomfortable regardless. Admitting that our pain doesn't have to dictate our future takes guts. It's easier, of course, to stay in a place where the blame is external, because if you let go of that identity, then who are you? It means that you are responsible for creating a new identity, and that kind of responsibility is scary. But here's the irony. Staying in victimhood feels like safe, but it's actually the exact thing that is holding us hostage. It's the exact thing that is holding us feeling threatened and unsafe. It's like carrying a heavy bag everywhere that you go. That bag is your story, is your reasons for why you can't be this, you can't be that, or whatever. And over time, you get used to having this weight. You even start to see it as part of who you are. But what if you could just drop it? And most people don't, because they can't imagine who they will be without that weight. That bag has become their comfort zone that they could hide behind. Even though it's heavy, even though it's draining, and it limits what they can actually do, they're still more comfortable carrying it. Here's the shift that you have to make. Pain is an experience and is not an identity. Yeah, it happened to you, but it isn't who you are. And when you start seeing it as just one part of your story and not the whole story, you can start reclaiming your power. You realize that even if the pain was beyond your control, the way that you respond to it isn't. And that's where real strength comes in. The kind that isn't about avoiding pain, but about facing it, about processing it, and finally moving beyond it. Think about it this way: your past can be a teacher if you let it. The moments that you thought were setbacks often hold the biggest lessons that your soul needed. So instead of saying, I can't do this because of my past, start asking yourself, how can my past actually empower me? And also reflect on this. How often do you replay your past in a way that it reinforces these feelings of inadequacy? What if you began to acknowledge your experience as part of your strength instead? So it's not about minimizing your struggles, but it's about owning your story fully and authentically. Because the truth is, life doesn't guarantee fairness, but it does give us the freedom to choose how we respond. And when you stop needing to be seen as the one who was hurt, and you start embracing yourself as the one who overcame, everything then changes. Victimhood, yes, might get you sympathy, but overcoming it will bring you power, it will bring you resilience, and it will bring you the kind of growth that really makes you unstoppable. Taking ownership of your life is not easy, but it's necessary. When you shift your perspective and you embrace your past and you see it as a source of growth, everything really changes, because you have the ability to rise above the labels and above the limitations that you have been carrying. It's about choosing to step into your power and creating a narrative that serves you, not one that confines you. So ask yourself, are you ready to put that heavy back down? Are you ready to let go of the comfort of that old story and actually step into a new one that you get to write? That's real freedom. It starts the moment that you decide that your pain may have shaped you, but it doesn't get to define you. Your story is still being written, and it's time for you to take your pen back. Now, the third hidden pattern that holds you back from breaking that negative cycle is focusing too much on the outcomes rather than the journey. And this can really cause us to miss the valuable experiences and the growth that we gain along the way. I know you might say that, I heard this one before, I already know this one, okay, whatever, let me skip it. But before you do that, do you actually know? Do you actually practice what you say that you preach? Being obsessed with outcomes is one of those traps that is so easy to fall into without even realizing it. But it often backfires in ways that you wouldn't even expect. We're constantly pushed to look ahead, to aim for the next achievement, to aim for the next goal, to climb to the top as fast as possible. But when all your energy is focused on reaching that end goal, you end up missing out on what's really important or what really matters. And that's the right now. That's the present moment, the process itself. And the thing is, when you're too fixated on the outcome, it doesn't just steal the joy from the journey. It can also make you perform worse. If your mind's always on winning and on hitting some future milestone, then every little setback feels like a threat to that outcome. You start to fear failure because any deviation from the plan, it starts to look like a loss. And when you're afraid of failing, you start playing it safe. You start avoiding risks, and the risks is where the growth happens. Real growth demands risk. Ironically, that tunnel vision on the end result can make you less resilient and less adaptable, because every small bump, it becomes a massive mental hurdle in your mind. So I want to bring to this like a key insight from the book Reality Transurfing. If you haven't read it, I really recommend that you do. And basically what reality transurfing is saying is that when you put your goal on a pedestal, you create excess potential and excess importance around it. You are basically telling yourself, this is everything. If I don't get this, nothing else matters. This is so important to me. And you magnify that goal. And what happens when you do that? You create inner tension and imbalance, and you're making it harder to actually achieve what you want. The universe then responds by pushing back, because that desperation and that need, it disrupts the natural flow of things. So you end up trying to force things, which just leads to frustration and burnout, instead of letting that path unfold naturally. Think about it. When you elevate something so high, you are subtly telling yourself that this is too out of reach. You're affirming that there's a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that only creates more obstacles in your way. The more you idolize the goal, the more elusive it becomes, because you're constantly generating that imbalance that needs to be corrected. So the key, according to reality transurfing, is to lower the importance. You need to basically treat your goals as if it's just another part of your life, and it's not something that your whole world revolves around. The less you cling, the more naturally things start to come together. Look at the people who don't just reach the finish line, but they keep growing long after they have crossed it. They're not just chasing the goal, they are in love with the process. And why is that? That is because they know that each day, each little challenge, every moment of struggle is building within them. It's building within them a skill set, an inner toughness that no outcome alone on its own could ever give them. They are not in a rush to win as quickly as possible. What they're doing is to show up every day to master their craft, to deepen their own understanding. And their reward is not a trophy or a title or whatever. It's the satisfaction of knowing that they are a bit better than they were yesterday. So here's something that you might not hear often. Obsessing over the end result can really make you lose touch with yourself. You get caught up in who you think you should be once you reach that goal, and you basically forget who you actually are right now. You end up living in a constant state, okay, not yet, not now, and you're always measuring yourself against that idealized version, future of yourself that might not even bring happiness when you get there. By living for someday, you miss the chance to appreciate who you are and what you have in this moment. So maybe it's time to see it differently. Success is not a destination, but it's a byproduct. When you approach your goals with curiosity and with an open mind, every day brings something new to you. It brings to you a lesson, it brings to you a skill, and even a failure that makes you wiser. And this kind of progress is not flashy, it's not romanticized, it's not pretty, and it doesn't get instant applause or it doesn't get quick recognition, but it's the kind of progress that builds over time, almost without you even realizing it. One day you look back and you realize how much you have grown, not because you were chasing that outcome to come fast as possible, but because you are fully living the journey. And here's a paradox: the more you fixate on the outcome, the further away it will feel. But when you choose to put your focus on what you can't control right now, and you find satisfaction in that work itself, that's when things start to fall into place. Success becomes a natural result of your dedication and not something that you have to force or something that you have to stress about. And it's not just about external success, it's about who you also become along the way. That journey will shape you, it will challenge you, it will strengthen you in ways that no end result ever could. Because once you hit that goal, there's always going to be another one. But if you can find purpose and fulfillment in each step that you take, you'll have something far more lasting than any temporary win. You will have a sense of peace and satisfaction that it can't be taken away because it's built on something real and something solid. So that's why a lot of people say, if everything was taken away from me, I will be able to rebuild it, because now they have the mentality, the mindset, the skills, and the personality of the person that can achieve that. So it doesn't matter what you get at the end, is the person that you become through that process that can make it happen again and again. So the question isn't how do I win, but who am I becoming through this process? When you start seeing things in this way, and when you stop putting your goals on that pedestal, that outcome will take care of itself. The trick is to remain balanced and to treat your goals as important, yes, but not so crucial that you lose sight of yourself. It's about striving without strain. It's about moving forward without forcing. And it's about also letting the journey unfold as it's meant to. The fourth hidden pattern is low self-esteem. And to break out of all patterns, it's very essential to build a healthy relationship with yourself. Okay, well, self-esteem. Self-esteem is not just about liking yourself or repeating positive affirmations. It's about what you believe you deserve deep down in those parts of you that rarely come up to the surface. We all have dreams, things that we say that we want, but be honest with yourself. Do you truly believe that you are worthy of those dreams? Because even if you have a flicker of a doubt, that flicker of a doubt can quietly really sabotage your whole process. And it's like a shadow that is following you everywhere that you go. And the tricky part is that self-esteem issues aren't always loud or they're not always obvious. Sometimes it's that tiny, barely noticeable hesitation, that feeling of discomfort when things actually start going well. It's that voice that is whispering, wow, my God, who do you think that you are to have this? It's like a program that is running in the background, and most of us, we don't even realize that it's there. And the thing is that these beliefs, they often take root in our earliest years, when we were younger. So we pick up messages about who we are allowed to be and what we are allowed to want. And those messages, they don't just disappear when we grow up. They actually get reinforced by experiences, they get reinforced by relationships and the stories that we keep telling ourselves. And if we are not careful, this becomes our default setting. The belief that we don't quite measure up, that we are not deserving of what we desire, it becomes our setting. And here's where it gets interesting. The mind has a way of seeking consistency. So if deep down you feel unworthy, you will subconsciously seek out situations that reinforce that feeling. You will find reasons to stay small, to hold back, and even self-sabotage. And you might not even see it happening, because when we're used to seeing ourselves in a certain way, anything that challenges that image, even if it's positive, it feels uncomfortable. I mean, think about it. Have you ever seen someone achieve something great only to lose it all just as quickly? Or maybe you have experienced this yourself. You work hard, things are finally going well, and then out of nowhere you do something that is setting yourself back. That's because your subconscious there is at work. It's uncomfortable with change, even when the change is good, because it disrupts the story that you have believed about yourself that for so long. So how do we shift this? It's not about putting on a mask of confidence or trying to force yourself to feel worthy. It's about going deep and peeling back those layers and really questioning the beliefs that you hold about yourself. So what you need to do is to ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Where did this belief come from? And when you start digging, you will often find that these feelings are not even yours. They are either ideas that were handed down to you by family, by culture, by past experiences. And once you see them for what they are, you can start to let them go. So here's a practice you could do. Every day, spend a few minutes reinforcing your own worth. Don't just go through the motions to just do it. Actually, let yourself feel it. Write down what you bring to the table, why you are deserving of what you want, and why you have the right to go after your dream. And you could go further and visualize yourself in situations where you have what you desire, and let yourself feel what it will be like, and notice any resistance that might comes up, because that's where the real work is. It's where you allow yourself to feel worthy without any reservation. And it's also crucial to surround yourself with people who reflect this back to you. You know, sometimes we stay stuck in low self-esteem because we are around people who reinforce our doubt. So find the people who lift you up, who encourage you to step into your full potential. And if that means stepping back from certain people or stepping back from certain environments, then so be it. The journey to building self-esteem isn't about becoming someone else, okay? It's about peeling away everything that isn't truly you. It's about realizing that you were worthy all along, but the stories that you absorbed along the way made you forget. So when you remember your worth, you stop looking for excuses to block your blessings, and you start seeing yourself as someone who has the right to be here, that has the right to be seen, and who has the right to have what you desire. So ask yourself, what will change if you truly believed that you were worthy of everything that you want? If you could move through life with that quiet, unshakable certainty that you deserve to take up space, you deserve to achieve, to be happy, who would you become if you had that? When you reach that place, that's when your life really starts to open up. The last hidden pattern that we don't realize how it holds us back from breaking from the negative cycle that we're in and going to the next level of our goals is one that a lot of people will underestimate, but it really changes everything. And that's the lack of awareness. Without self-reflection or self-discovery, we tend to fall victim to our unconscious behaviors and the programs that keep us stuck in that same negative loop. and the same negative cycle. Self-awareness, right? It sounds simple, but it goes way deeper than what we often realize. Most of us move through life on a kind of mental autopilot. We're driven by habits, we're driven by reactions, and we're driven by patterns that are so deeply ingrained that we mistake them for who we are. We think that, this is just me, but often it's not us at all. It's a mix of fears, of beliefs, and behaviors that they were just handed down from other people. And when you are on autopilot, you are not really in control of your life. You are just reacting to it. So let's break this down with an example. For example, money. So many people think that they have a money problem, but what they really have is a fear problem. They have a scarcity mindset. So maybe you grew up in a home where money was always tight, where spending was seen as risky. So you carry with you that fear into adulthood. And instead of seeing money as a tool, you see it as something to guard, to hold close, because there's this deep-rooted fear of losing it. And here's the catch. Even when you have enough, that program of fear can keep running, and it's gonna keep affect how you spend, how you save, and how you live. Here's where self-awareness can change everything. Once you realize that this pattern isn't actually about money, you start to see that it's just a story that you have absorbed. And stories can be rewritten. The key is to dig deeper and ask yourself, where did this come from? Who taught me this? And is it actually true? Most of the time, these programs come from others. They come from our parents, they come from our culture, they come from our past experiences. They're not universal truths, right? They're just perspective. And when you see them for what they are, you create a little space between you and that habit. And in that space, you can make a different choice. Now, let's flip this around. If self-awareness is the antidote to those patterns, then what is it really? It's the ability to step outside of yourself and see what's going on without any judgment, but just with curiosity. Self-awareness is like a mirror that shows you both the habits that empower you and the ones that hold you back. And here's the powerful truth. Once you become aware of a pattern, it starts to lose its grip. It doesn't just disappear overnight, but awareness, it weakens its hold on you. Think of your patterns like paths on a forest. When you keep walking down the same path, they are easy, they are familiar, they're automatic, but with self-awareness, you are given a chance to step off those beaten paths and create a new trail. At first, it's hard work and it takes intention and it takes effort to step out of those comfortable reactive patterns, but over time, as you keep choosing that new path, that new one, it becomes your default. And this is where true freedom comes in. You are no longer a victim of your old habit that was on autopilot. You are actively choosing the direction of your life. Another example is that maybe you've always believed that you're just not good at relationships. That's also a program. It's easy to accept that story, but it's actually a shield and it's a defense against vulnerability. And it's something that maybe you have developed from past experiences where you got hurt. And when you can look at the story without any judgment, you begin to see that it's not really you and it's just a fear that it got stuck in your identity. And when you recognize it, you can ask yourself, what if I tried a different approach? What if I allowed myself to be open, to trust, and even if it feels uncomfortable? What you don't realize is that self-awareness is a skill, and like any other skill, it grows with practice. So it's not about a one-time revelation. It's about a commitment to check in with yourself regularly. Awareness means noticing when you're triggered, when you feel resistance, when you're running on autopilot. And then with patience, bringing yourself back to the present moment and asking, is this truly me? Or is this just an old program? I know this process isn't easy. Self-awareness can be confronting and even painful because it forces us to look at parts of ourselves that we will rather ignore. But the rewards that we get, are really huge. When you start seeing yourself clearly and you are no longer a slave to those hidden forces, and you are free to live intentionally and to make choices that reflect who you want to become, not just who you have been told that you are. So here's the question. If you could strip away all the old programs, all the stories and the beliefs that you have absorbed from others, who would you be if you weren't held back by these unconscious habits? That's the path of self-awareness, becoming the creator of your own reality, unchained by any patterns that no longer serve you. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you for being here. I'll see you in the next time.